foreign ministers from the BRICS countries are meeting in South Africa from today as the five-nation bloc seeks to forge itself into a counterweight to Western geopolitical dominance in the wake of Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. The talks are prelude to an August summit in Johannesburg that has already created controversy because of the possible attendance of Russian President Vladimir Putin, the target of an international criminal court arrest warrant. It accused him in March of the war crime of forcibly deporting children from a Russian-occupied territory in the Ukraine. Moscow denies the allegations. South Africa had already invited Putin in January. So on that note, let's bring Professor Chris Isike. He is the director of the African Center for the Study of the United States at the University of Pretoria to weigh in on this meeting. Prof, good afternoon. Thanks for your time with us here on the SABC.
Good afternoon, Lizelle, and thank you for having me.
Prof, perhaps you could help us understand the importance and the aim of this gathering. I'm just asking this on the back of South Africa having assumed the chairmanship for the presidency rather for BRICS as of the 1st of January this year.
Well, it's a standard procedural meeting that foreign ministers of BRICS countries have, a few months before the actual BRICS meeting. Every time they have these meetings, and usually they, decide on the agenda, the format of the meetings. But in this case, although there's not much news about what the agenda is specifically this time, but it is expected that they will talk about, the war in Ukraine and how it will help to strengthen BRICS. In this regard, they are also going to consider the membership applications or the possibility of admitting new members. So those are the kind of things that I expect them to talk about. Depending on whether South Africa wants to push for this, I'm sure that there's a possibility of also looking at the Sudan conflict, given Russia's role in it.
Prof, thank you for that context. I wonder if you could help us understand how important this meeting is for South Africa in particular to showcase its leadership and demonstrate its ability to engage in meaningful discussions only because of the conflicts perhaps that are happening both regionally and internationally, and how it's also impacting the crossroads South Africa finds itself in at this point, whether ideologically, whether it's balancing historical ties, and with the economic benefits from the West?
Lots of questions there. Look, South Africa is already a very important country globally. I mean, it has the soft power profile of hosting big events like this. So it's not a new thing for South Africa, but it is significant at this point in time, given the changing the geopolitical dynamics in the international system and where South Africa finds itself, at this moment. So it's important, that South Africa organizes this meeting and is part of the planning, the logistics, especially if the Russian President Vladimir Putin insists on attending the meeting, and that has its own problems, in my view, for South Africa. Of course, everybody knows that, but I think that there is also a possibility of South Africa, prevailing on the president not to necessarily attend the meeting. South Africa then would have to do a cost-benefit analysis in terms of what it could lose, if it has the Russian president coming in to be part of the meeting and not following not following the dictates of the ICC to arrest Putin. What that would mean for South Africa, the country would have to think about that before deciding on a particular course of action. A cost-benefit analysis would determine whether South Africa would really need to go ahead with hosting this meeting. I've heard that there are talks of the possibility of ceding it to China at this point in time, and maybe that's a good way to go. Again, to South Africa, it's important that if South Africa does host it, the things like the conflict in Sudan gets put on the agenda, because South Africa is supposed to be showing some kind of leadership for Africa, and the conflict in Sudan is something that they should talk about, much as they are also interested in leading the African peace envoy, peace mission to talk to both Ukraine and Russia to find a pathway out of the conflict. So either way, South Africa finds itself playing a very important role, aligned with its foreign policy of non-violent resolution of conflict, and its foreign policy of being anti-war.
Prof, earlier on you alluded to some of the issues that is likely to top the agenda, including who to perhaps admit as a new member, and really what to do about Vladimir Putin amid the, the Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov also being on the shores of South Africa, visiting the country at this time. Time is ticking, though. And I wonder, in your opinion, whether there is enough time to get done what needs to be done ahead of the visit, ahead of the BRICS summit that's scheduled to take place in August, from South Africa's side at least.
Well, there is enough time. If South Africa is clear and wants to host the meeting, I think there is enough time for South Africa to get its house in order and do be a good host of the meeting. However, it has to also deal with the thorny issue of having President Putin. And while many talk about the pressures that the United States put on South Africa to act its non-aligned stance, we must also talk about the pressure that Putin is putting on South Africa by insisting consistently that he would want to attend the meeting. I mean, if there is friendship, if there's a relationship of understanding between South Africa and Russia, surely if Russia is not wanting to put its own interests first, and which in this case would be to show to the West, especially to the United States, that it is not being abandoned by its friends, South Africa has already done enough to show the world and the United States that it wants to maintain its friendship with Russia. And South Africa does have the right to do that. However, you would also think that Russia would also then think of South Africa's interest, which will not be served if the Russian president attends. I mean, the current meeting that is happening in Cape Town, the deputy foreign minister of China is the one attending. So nothing stops Putin from actually sending either Lavrov or the president of Russia to attend on his behalf. He really does not need to attend this meeting except to prove a point. But that point will be at the expense of South Africa's economic interest. So should South Africa then sacrifice its economic interest for the interest of another country or another president? I think not, that South Africa should not be doing that. And that for me would be the key challenge in hosting this particular BRICS meeting.
Prof, in conclusion, just in the interest of time, with the invitation extended to 15 other foreign ministers from Africa and other countries in the global south, what do you think we can also expect on that front? Is this a sign of growing interest, perhaps, from the global south in terms of it expanding? How do you weigh up in those dynamics?
Yeah, so BRICS is becoming more important, and this is all on the back of the war in Ukraine, Russia's war in Ukraine. We've had countries like Venezuela, Argentina, I think Iran, Algeria, the whole global south, and these countries I'm mentioning are the oil bloc countries, and a few from Africa have also indicated interest. It's good omen for BRICS, because it then actually improves its potential, to be a counterweight to the United States and the West. So the Global South membership is crucial, but I'm not sure how the BRICS, the current BRICS country would accommodate them, and what that would mean for the nomenclature of BRICS. Maybe it would become BRICS +1, but I think that it's useful for BRICS to begin to extend itself beyond the five BRICS countries, and then have additional membership from the Global South, especially this oil bloc that I just mentioned.
Prof, thank you for your time with us here on the SABC. We'll perhaps monitor developments as that meeting unfolds over the next few days. Prof. Chris Isike, Director of the African Center for the Study of the United States at the University of Pretoria, weighing in as foreign ministers from BRICS countries are meeting in South Africa from today, obviously as the five-nation bloc seeks to forge itself into a counterweight to Western geopolitical dominance in the wake of Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. Again, thank you to Prof. Chris for his time.